pro-life and pro-choice movements are on pins and needles after a very conservative Supreme Court heard today what's arguably the most important abortion case in decades, one that could cripple the landmark Roe versus Wade ruling. Since the 1973 Roe decision, the Constitution has protected a woman's right to end unwanted pregnancies as long as the fetus isn't viable, meaning it can't survive outside the womb, which has been said to be about 23 weeks. But in 2018, Mississippi's then governor, Phil Bryant, passed the Mississippi Gestational Act into law, effectively banning abortions at 15 weeks. The only abortion provider in the state challenged the law, and a federal judge blocked it, saying it was unconstitutional. In 2020, the state appealed to the Supreme Court, which granted a review in May. And so here we are. The majority conservative Supreme Court heard the case earlier today. And here to unpack this renewed threat to a woman's right to choose is Jacqueline Ayers, the Senior Vice President of Policy, Organizing, and Campaigns for Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining me. And before we get into today's case, you know, this year has been marked as the most restrictive year for abortion access since 1973. What have we seen this year alone in terms of anti-abortion restrictions? Set the stage.
Yeah, thank you so much. We have to actually realize that what happened today, what has been happening, is not really a surprise. In the reproductive health rights and justice movement, we have been sounding the alarm for years and years and years. Really, we have seen since Roe v. Wade went into effect that state legislatures have continued to push state restrictions, more bills. But you know what the big difference has made is that when we had the previous administration, President Trump and Mitch McConnell rushed to push through three justices, conservative justices, who we know were hostile to reproductive rights. And as a result, state legislators started introducing all of these restrictive laws. In fact, in 2021, just this year, we've seen more than we ever have before, completely unprecedented, with 500 bills introduced across the country attacking this one issue, all in an effort to get to this point where we are today in pushing these restrictions up to a conservative Supreme Court.
Which is clearly at this point just a crazy ideological, kind of witch hunt, in the sense that there are a lot of pressing issues that matter. And the constant attacking of this one, I can't see anything beyond it being other than just bigotry against women at the end of the day. But, that's just how it looks to me. I'm reminded of Handmaid's Tale and the activism that happened around what you just mentioned, the Supreme Court fights, plural, around those Trump SCOTUS elections, and that Donald Trump said specifically that if I get, 2 or 3 justices, then, we could absolutely overturn Roe versus Wade. So it's been very much a strategy. I gave a brief history about the latest attack from the anti-abortion movement that's gotten us here to the Supreme Court. Can you fill in the gaps for us? What is at the core of this latest case that the Supreme Court heard today, which is called Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization?
Yeah, Jackson Women's Health Organization is the last abortion provider in the state of Mississippi, which means that if you are living in Mississippi and need access to abortion health care, you're traveling miles. You are probably having to get child care, take time off work. You're incurring a lot of costs. And not to forget, we also are now today 3 months in to the state of Texas having banned abortion at 6 weeks. That means that there are now regions of the country where people can no longer get access to the care that they need. And so we have to remember that everybody knows somebody who has needed an abortion. 1 in 4 women will have had an abortion in their lifetime. This is common health care, and it absolutely should not be determined by your zip code or where you live. But unfortunately, the politicians in the state of Mississippi pushed this 15-week bill. This is a case that never actually should have been taken. Both the Texas case that we heard the Supreme Court do last month, the case that was argued today, it flies in the face of 50 years of precedent. We have never before had a time with Roe being on the books for this amount of time, had these sorts of restrictions actually being considered. And unfortunately, what happened today in the oral arguments, you heard the conservative justices can seem to open themselves up to this idea that we need to reset Roe v. Wade, that there should be more restrictions, that it should be left up to the states. And it's really important to know your constitutional rights should not depend on your state. Your constitutional rights should be available to everybody, and certainly should not be determined by politicians who know what's best for your health care.
So just, put a fine point on why people are saying that this particular decision in this case that has to do with Mississippi could come very close to, or actually just totally eradicate Roe versus Wade itself.
Yeah, we have to remember what the state of Mississippi and many state attorney generals joined in the request for Mississippi. They made a request today to just completely get rid of Roe, not only uphold the 15-week ban that the state of Mississippi is having considered, but the Mississippi Attorney General also went even a step further and said, get rid of 50 years of precedent, undo Roe v. Wade, undo Planned Parenthood v. Casey. And their request right now, what they've asked the court to consider, would completely undo access to health care. You have to think about this, right? There are generations of people, Black and brown women, who have been able to make college decisions, financial stability decisions, education decisions, where they're going to live, because they know they would be able to have access to care if they had an unwanted pregnancy. What the court is facing is changing generations of access to people, and we know that's going to impact Black and brown women most, and those people who are living at low incomes. In fact, Planned Parenthood put out a report recently that states, if in fact Mississippi's law is allowed to stand, there are up to 26 more states that could similarly pass these types of abortion bans. That would leave 36 million people of reproductive age without access to health care and access to their abortion.
So this viability argument has actually come up before the Supreme Court in the 1992 Planned Parenthood versus Casey case, and the court found some middle ground there where abortion rights were kept in place. So what was that middle ground, and did the makeup of the Supreme Court play a role in that decision?
Yeah, it's important to look back at that time, 1992, when Planned Parenthood v. Casey was being considered, that actually we had judges who had been appointed by both Republicans and Democrats coming to the understanding that women's fundamental liberty, your bodily autonomy, still had to be protected, right? That there is an interest of the state in making sure that they could put some restrictions in place. You've heard it referred to in today's oral arguments as up to the point of viability. And they also said you cannot unduly burden a woman's constitutional right, where that person would no longer be able to access their care. So that balance that happened in Roe, that happened in Casey, today's oral argument, Mississippi, as asking the court to completely fly in the face of that precedent. And again, this is a case that never even should have been considered because we have established precedent. And it's really actually this case is going to go to the legitimacy of the court, whether or not, particularly those conservative justices who all came before the Senate and said that they would respect precedent. This is really going to be the test as to whether or not they are truthfully going to respect precedent.
I would love for you to just put a fine point on it, and I know you kind of started to explain this a few times, but put a fine point on how, if in fact Roe v. Wade gets completely neutered or thrown out altogether, how will this impact low-income communities and Black and brown people in particular?
Yeah, we have to just look at the state of Mississippi that we're talking about. This is a state that never expanded Medicaid. They also kicked Planned Parenthood Health Center out of the program. Your options were already limited. We just talked about the fact that there was one abortion facility remaining. Mississippi is one of 5 states that now only have one abortion facility. The maternal health outcomes in a state like Mississippi are particularly difficult for Black women. So you're asking people to have to make this decision about forcing themselves to remain in a pregnancy that may not be the best thing, that may not be their choice, and it also may not be the best thing that their healthcare or economic options would be allowed to them to be able to support that child. And so we have to remember that trust Black women, Black women know what's best for them, and not politicians should be making these decisions. So when we look at a state like Mississippi, we really need to be making sure they have people have access to more health care, not less health care. And unfortunately, this Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health case really does fly in the face of that, and it's going to have a really radical impact, not just on Texas, not just on Mississippi. We've already seen multiple states, Florida, Arkansas, Missouri, naming that depending on what the Supreme Court does, they're going to very quickly follow suit. So we will have entire regions of the country where people are having to make difficult decisions about, can I get a hotel room? Will I be able to get a bus, or can somebody drive me out of state? If I do that, will I lose my job, right? And you're going to have, unfortunately, a lot of people who can't get out of the state that they're in. So we really are at a crisis moment. And I think what you saw today, all those people in front of the Supreme Court, are the reminder that 80% of Americans do not want to see Roe v. Wade overturned. And really, state and federal politicians should be paying attention to what constituents want to see.
All right, and this is absolutely about health care, as you laid out. Jacqueline Ayers, Senior Vice President of Policy Organizing and Campaigns for Planned Parenthood Federation of America. We appreciate you fighting the fight to preserve the women's right to choose and women's health generally. And thank you so much for being here on Amplified.